समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
The test of Russia's new Burevestnik missile, powered by a nuclear reactor, is being marketed as a breakthrough achievement in a new strategic weapons race with the West. The technology is, however, more than 6 decades old and was rejected, as you'll see, because it did not have a clear strategic rationale. Why then is Russia pursuing this and a new generation of other nuclear superweapons? In this episode of Security Code, I'll be examining the potential breakdown of the nuclear order that's occurring as we speak now and the consequences it could have for the future of warfare and for all our lives. Fingers dancing over the black and white keys, the eminent physicist Theodore Merkel accompanied the lewd songs being belted out by his crew on the piano perched on the back of the truck lurching into the village of Mercury, Arizona. Their elation could be shared with no one. Earlier that afternoon, on the 14th of May 1961, on a great arid plain called the Jackass Flats, Merkel's crew had fired up a giant bright red device the size and shape of a steam locomotive designed to power a cruise missile which would fly treetop high for thousands of kilometers at 3 times the speed of sound. The project's leadership had codenamed this incredible weapon Pluto for the Roman god of the realm of the dead. Pluto, devoured by his father Saturn, and then vomited out together with his siblings into the universe. Last week, President Vladimir Putin announced the 9M730 Burevestnik cruise missile had made its first successful long-endurance flight, traveling more than 14,000 kilometers over 15 hours with a nuclear-powered ramjet engine. Endurances and ranges unimaginable with engines powered on conventional fuels. This means the Burevestnik, Russian for the bird storm petrel, can evade air defenses by taking very circuitous routes and can loiter near the target for days or even weeks. Even though President Putin had unveiled the Burevestnik as one of 6 super weapons back in 2018, its nuclear-powered engine is no radical technological breakthrough. The strategic concept underpinning the Burevestnik would have been completely familiar to the engineers who were celebrating the first successful test of a nuclear-powered ramjet engine at Mercury more than 6 decades ago. Less than 2 months after Merkel's team successfully tested an advanced version of their nuclear ramjet in 1964, producing the equivalent of over 150 kilonewtons of thrust, or the maximum power both the Rafale's 2 Snecma engines can produce, their program was shut down. Even though their Tori 2C engine could have traversed a staggering 37,000 kilometers, competing technologies, notably the intercontinental ballistic missile, offered long-range nuclear warhead delivery at much lower costs and with far fewer risks. That raises the question of why Russian nuclear strategists, who are familiar with the sound reasoning behind America's decision to abandon nuclear ramjet propulsion, are now investing in the Burevestnik and other new categories of weapons. The answer to that question offers disturbing insights into the unraveling of the global nuclear order, which has long mitigated the risks of war between the 3 superpowers. The second decade of the Cold War was an excellent time to be a mad scientist. The roseate optimism that marked the end of the Second World War was shattered by the Korean conflict in 1950, leading many strategists to conclude that nuclear war between the superpowers was inevitable, possibly imminent. Fear led politicians to commission ever larger nuclear bombs and ever faster combat jets to deliver them, as well as more eccentric projects like the radiation spewing ramjet rocket that tossed out thermonuclear bombs as it went. Engineers working with fuel hungry jet engines, you see, had begun hitting trade offs between speed and range and saw nuclear jet engines as a potential solution. Clarence Kelly Johnson, the aeronautical engineer who designed legendary aircraft like the Lockheed U 2 and the SR 71 Blackbird, noted that, I quote, the advent of a type of power plant that will solve the range problem is of the utmost importance. And of course, he meant nuclear reactor powered jet. Lightweight materials to shield human crews from radioactivity did not then exist. So, creating such an engine and an aircraft posed some pretty special challenges. After all, without shielding, the entire crew would end up with radiation sicknesses. From 1956, an experimental reactor was fitted to a Convair NB-36H strategic bomber, with the original crew cabin replaced by an 11-ton nose section lined with lead and rubber. To further protect against radiation escaping from the reactor, 9 water-filled shield tanks were fitted into the central fuselage. The NB-36H made 47 flights from July 1955 to March 1957, with the reactor going critical on board the plane for the first time in flight in September 1955, though that reactor was never coupled to the engines. The project, then classified documents show, was killed off in 1959 after it became clear no one could commit to a deadline for its successful completion. An uncrewed missile, on the other hand, allowed for substantial reductions in weight and complexity since no shielding was needed to protect the crew. The ramjet, however, still needed special ceramic components to survive the combination of the 2500 degrees centigrade temperature in the reactor core, as well as the environmental rain, snow, and salt water. The Coors Porcelain Company, an offshoot of the brewers of Coors beer, created 500,000 ceramic fuel elements used in the reactor. Even though Pluto had an engine now, the missile it was meant to power, called Supersonic Low Altitude Missile or SLAM, had not really moved past the design stage. The challenge would almost certainly have been met eventually, but a growing rank of critics began asking just what mission Pluto was meant for. After all, if it was delivering nuclear warheads at high speed, there were other missiles better capable of doing it. The lack of a clear answer to this question led to the project simply being terminated. For all the magnificence of its technical achievements, the Burevestnik today faces the same question. The missile, unlike Pluto's SLAM, is subsonic, making it easier to intercept than many other platforms in existence. The missile's long loiter times and extended range are useful, but remember, those same times also give defenders more opportunities to shoot it down. And the operational risks are high. Fission reactors, as Chernobyl and Fukushima demonstrated, can cause pretty catastrophic problems. A 2019 Burevestnik accident is reported to have claimed the lives of 5 scientists. The genesis of the Burevestnik and its sister superweapons lies instead in something called the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, or ABM Treaty, signed between the United States and the Soviet Union in 1971. The treaty gave both countries the right to operate a single anti-ballistic missile site, that is, a site for missiles to intercept other missiles. The Soviet Union chose to protect Moscow with an A-135 nuclear-armed interceptor missile, while the United States Grand Forks base in North Dakota mirrored its functions. For nuclear strategists, limiting deliberately a nation-state's ability to defend itself from attack made perfect sense. The whole point of nuclear deterrence, after all, was ensuring both sides could cause unacceptable damage and were thus both restrained from going to war. An anti-ballistic missile race, it was believed, would only lead adversaries to expand their arsenals to ensure some warheads still got through, and you'd have an expensive but useless defense system. In 2002, though, President George W. Bush's government withdrew from the ABM treaty, confident that cash-strapped post-Soviet Russia simply could not match American progress in ABM technology. The USA claimed it needed ABM systems to protect against attack by so-called rogue states with small numbers of missiles, like North Korea or Iran. As America's ABM systems became more effective, Russia and China both began to invest in exotic technologies to defeat those interceptors. Both Russia and China began expanding their arsenal of large ICBMs capable of carrying multiple independently targeted warheads, or MIRVs, as well as glide vehicles and hypersonic missiles, which can evade missile defenses by flying at more than 5 times the speed of sound. This push has accelerated since earlier this year, when President Donald Trump announced he was seeking a ballistic missile defense system to protect the entire United States. Likely, at least some of Moscow's new technologies are designed to help expand its arsenal to counter this future threat, while at once remaining in compliance with another treaty called New START. The New START treaty, signed in 2010, limits both the United States and Russia to an arsenal of 1,550 intercontinental ballistic missiles, deployed submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and deployed heavy bombers. Although some of Russia's new weapons, like the Sarmat ICBM, fall within New START definitions and thus can't be expanded, the Burevestnik and Poseidon underwater nuclear drone arguably do not, giving Russia something which it can trade against America's ABMs in negotiations in the future. The real problem is that ABM systems may be buying nuclear states merely the illusion of security rather than the thing itself. As expert Sam Lehr notes, missile defense resembles a sieve more closely than a shield, filtering out only a percentage of incoming warheads. Arrow 3 and SM-3 interceptors knocked out 15 of 180 Iranian missiles mid-course in their trajectory during the recent 12-day war, and that's at 8 million per hit. Dollars, of course. 45 of the 165 missiles that made it through this first layer of interception then hit their targets, the rest being intercepted at the terminal stage or the last stage of an ICBM's trajectory. Now, even these impressive results are far from the impenetrable missile shield Trump and others are promising voters. As the number of incoming missiles increases, though, as it would if a nation like Russia or China were involved, or the density of interceptors decreases, as it would over a giant area like the continental United States, so would the size of the holes in the sieve through which a missile could get through. The nuclear sanity clawed back through the START Treaty and other nuclear agreements through the later stages of the Cold War is thus at real threat of being lost today, as leaders become seduced by the idea that their territories can be made invulnerable to adversaries. The test of the Burevestnik makes clear nuclear nation states will search for means to go under, over, or around anti-ballistic missile defenses, leading the world into an expensive technology race with profoundly uncertain outcomes. As scholar Barton Hacker notes, the story of Pluto needs more attention because it shows us that technical achievement is not in itself a strategic end. Because I can belongs in the lexicon of the professional adventurer or juvenile delinquent, not the nuclear warfighter. I'm Praveen Swami, and I'm a contributing editor to ThePrint. Thank you for watching this episode of Security Code.